right, now we're joined by John M. Polk, the author of Yahweh, the Biblical God is an Alien. And we're going to talk about his book for a second here, but I want to thank him for joining us here on Skywatchers Radio and, of course, for being part of the Mufon Symposium 2016. Tell us a little bit about the book.
Yahweh, in effect, is actually Enlil of the Anunnaki, who posed as God in the Bible. And the reason he posed as God in the Bible is because Creator God aliens from all over creation, all over the planet, descended to the earth in fiery chariots, descended upon either the indigenous hominids, which were primitive hominids back in the day, and or were planted with DNA from the Anunnaki to create and fashion a new model human being. And that's basically ancient alien astronaut theory steeped in my book, Yahweh, the Biblical God is an Alien. It goes back to Enlil and the Anunnaki, who conceivably colonized the earth, the planet, dating back millions upon millions of years.
What was it about the subject of Yahweh and God and aliens that got you interested in writing a book about it, and what got you involved in ufology in general?
I would have to say Eric von Daniken and Zechariah Sitchin, their whole philosophy is ancient alien astronaut theory. And like most of us, I grew up in church, and I fought against it for years and years. And the more you watch Ancient Aliens, and granted, not all of it is true. Not all of the show is true. A lot of it is sensationalized, hyperbolized, exaggerated in many cases. But what I do believe is that there is a core of truth to it. So you go back into ancient times, into all ancient cultures, and they all have a very similar story. The gods descended from the skies in fiery chariots, descended upon the earth, and they colonized the earth and or mixed their DNA with the primitive indigenous hominids on the planet to fashion and create a new model human. And one thing that they did do, yes, we have African Americans, we have Asians, we have Hindus, we have people of all colors, all nationalities, all races around this entire planet. But one thing they did do was create us so that we could interbreed with each other, and so that they could interbreed with us. And that's a basic premise of ancient alien astronaut theory. And the number one reason that I believe that Enlil, or Yahweh, i.e. God in the Bible, flooded the planet is because the fallen angels were Anunnaki who basically got kicked out of the mothership, descended to earth, and Genesis 6, the sons of the gods, plural, the sons of the gods descended to earth and mated with the daughters of men and created what you call the Nephilim, or the Nephilim. And they were considered giants, not necessarily giants in stature, but they had supernatural powers because they were half, in fact, Anunnaki. And Enlil could see procreation getting rampant and out of hand, and the product that the Nephilim were creating with the indigenous on the planet were creating beings that he could not control. And so since he could not control them, he decided to wipe the slate clean and start all over again. And that's why we have Noah's flood. But then there's flood myths. There's over 2,000 flood myths throughout the world, and they all have different characters involved that created these floods. But in the end, it was Enlil, and actually his father, Anu, wanted him to do it also, so that they could start with a new human model, which is, i.e., us today, which are more controllable. And that's why we are who we are today.
If you're saying that Yahweh is an alien from that whole Anunnaki group, the timeline that's in the Bible doesn't correlate with millions of years ago, because according to the Bible, the earth is only 6,000 something or other years old. So how do you correlate the stories and the timelines is my question number one. And when it comes to the flood itself, there are other theories that posit that as Noah looked up into the sky talking to God, what he did see was a comet that ended up in one of the oceans and caused the massive tidal waves, which caused the floods. What is your perspective on that?
Those are actually both very brilliant questions. So the current human creation story that we have now is really a modern facsimile thereof, something that has reoccurred and reoccurred time and time again, dating back hundreds of thousands of years. This is not the first human creation story that we're experiencing right now. This is not the first quote-unquote Bible or Bible-like text that has been created. This kind of human creation story has gone on for many, many epochs. And according to the Hopi, the earth has been created and destroyed 5 different times. And what I do believe is that 2012, December 21st, on the winter solstice, was not the end of the world, of course, because we're all here today, but it was the beginning of a new dimension and a new epoch for us to mature into physically, supernaturally, and spiritually all together. So, brilliant question, and I'm glad you asked it.
My question to you then is, because I'm very interested in the Anunnaki, I did a lot of research on it myself. So what's your take on Enki? Because I've heard about Enlil and Anu, them being the ones that are like, screw the old humans, we want to make new humans. But Enki, what I've heard, was the scientist, and he might have befriended us and maybe kind of been responsible for some of the science that was involved in making us. So kind of what's your take on that?
I would have to agree with you in your research. There's quite a bit of research out there that actually says that Enki was in fact Jesus Christ. But if you think about it, that really makes no sense whatsoever, because Jesus Christ preached the word of his Father, the Lord. In effect, Enki was on the side of humans. Enki was almost the serpent who was tempting us with the forbidden fruit of knowledge. Yeah, I don't think that, but he could be construed as a Lucifer figure. Okay, Lucifer was actually part of the seraphim, which would have made him more reptilian. Okay, but Enki wanted to side with the humans and did side with the humans. He wanted to give us knowledge. He wanted to give us technology. Enlil basically wanted to make us a slave race. You do what I say, or I kill you, and that's it. But one thing about Enlil is, as long as we did exactly what he said and deified him and loved him and worshipped him on geodetic markers, more namely the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, which is curious. Jews, Muslims, and Christians all worship their god or god figure from the same geodetic marker. And it's interesting that Baalbek in Lebanon, also the Trilithon in Baalbek, Lebanon, Mount Sinai and Mount Hermon, where the fallen angels all descended, are on a geodetic line across the earth grid. Very interesting how they all line up in that part of the northern Middle East. Yeah, absolutely. They are on a ley line. So they are.
Those ancient sites usually are, because that's where they knew about the ley lines, they knew about the power there, so that's where all those temples are actually built. And then that's where a lot of actually Christian churches are nowadays, because they just knock down the old stuff and they put their stuff up. So those are really, a lot of them are places of power.
Quick question, I'm not trying to sidetrack, but with all the different names of the Anunnaki, why did those names not translate down through history as the same names? Why did they change names, or why did we change their names?
If you go to the Sumerian kings list, they had some kings that lived to be over 40,000 years old. So that takes us way back before, Jesus Christ was even thought of. And if you add up the Sumerian kings list, it's debatable, but supposedly it adds up to about 450,000 years. Okay? And so that's the reason why they haven't handed down the same names, because in effect these were different Anunnaki deities. You have one, that one dies or moves on. Then you have another one, that one dies and moves on. Then you have another one, and that one dies and moves on. So it's not the same one being reincarnated, it's actually different ones. Now, Creator God aliens, they create civilization in and around these geodetic markers because of the upwelling of earth energy. Now, you couple that with prayer, okay? You pray around these geodetic markers, it amplifies exponentially that prayer energy. And then Yahweh, or whatever other Creator God alien, receives that energy matriculating up into the cosmos. And then when you die, because you believed and prayed to this deity as if he was the real God, he actually takes inheritance of a part of your soul as your soul fragments, and it's debatable, 13 different components, and then nano-quantum pieces of your soul also go to different parts of what you could call the omniverse. But a part of your soul cycles through his quantum hologram matrix, and he actually takes possession of your soul. just like a lot of movies we've seen, like The Mummy, takes possession of your soul. Ghost Rider takes possession of your soul. Why? Because they gain exponential supernatural power because you actually prayed to them and believed that they were actually God. But we do have one God, and it is called universal God consciousness. It's the one thing that we all have in common. So the most important race on this planet is the human race, and we're all a part of it, and we need to get used to that concept.
In other words, the gods that seeded this planet are not the universal God. They're maybe descendants of that God, or were they just on a different mission without that God's involvement?
The practice of creator God aliens descending to primitive fledgling planets like this little blue dot we call the Earth is not just exclusive to the Earth. Enlil probably has perhaps 100 or even more planets that he's receiving prayer energy and souls from. So what I've been receiving through my downloads is that Enlil wants to be considered one of the higher gods. The lower gods rule the planets in the underworld. The higher gods rule the heavens. And Enlil, as long as he deceives we humans into believing that he's God and uses our prayer energy and our souls to help him gain strength in the cosmos, where it was making him strong in the past, now it's making him weak in his ascension process. So I believe a big part of disclosure is my book and this concept that he cannot let go of this planet until we learn that he is not actually God. Okay? Religion divides us. Religion makes us fight. It creates wars. Or at least what we think religion is. And it's all part of manipulation. So I've had a lot of, at least professed experts in the field ask me questions about this. And nothing's totally provable, but based on what I'm receiving in my downloads is that Enlil wants to be considered one of the higher gods so that he can basically boss around the lesser gods that rule the planets in the underworld. And until he lets go of us, and until we let go of him, we're kind of stuck in a tractor beam with each other. So, and what I also believe is that if he leaves this planet in a shambles, that it will thwart his ascension process and stop him from becoming one of the higher gods, which is what his ultimate goal is right now.
I want to go back to something that you said, because I don't think a lot of people know this, especially when it comes to energy and how the energy of prayer can be absorbed. I know a lot of our listeners are probably familiar with Bohemian Grove. Anybody who's interested in this subject is. What a lot of people don't know is that the protesters who gather outside of Bohemian Grove, most of them are pagans, and most of them are out there clearing the energy of that space. And there are actually videos you can go and see that. Watch this. They're out there calling the corners. They're out there doing their rituals because the energy inside of Bohemian Grove, whatever they're doing in there, is not good. Is no bueno. So there might be some truth to what you're saying about how powerful the energy of prayer can be and how it can be used and manipulated.
You're right. They've actually done experiments at Mecca where they had what you call an electroscope. An electroscope measures thoughts, thought waves, brain energy, and prayer energy. And you can see a spike where there's no prayer, and then where the prayers begin. You can see the spike in energy. And energy is something that can be harnessed if you know how to harness it. If somebody, especially somebody's close to you, and they're, not doing very well in a physical way, health problems, prayer energy, it doesn't always solve all the problems, but it does help. And even in the Bible, and I believe that most of the Bible is true, you just got to change a few key words, like extraterrestrial instead of God, extraterrestrial instead of archangel. But there is so much reality in prayer energy. And in the Bible it says, where two people gather in my name, I am there. It plays right into my philosophy. So if there's two people there, he is there. Imagine if there's 1,000 people there praying in his name. How much more extrapolated energy do you get from that? I mean, it's pretty incredible to think about. But now we got to think in terms of our concentric selves. So in the third density, the 3D earth plane, I'm in this physical container as a Homo sapien. But let's say in the fifth density, maybe I'm an extraterrestrial. Maybe in the seventh density, which the Arcturians are, maybe I'm actually Yahweh terraforming planets for the purpose of my higher alien self to receive all these prayer energies and souls, to be the same kind of creator God alien that Yahweh is to us in the 3D earth plane, I am to other beings in another dimensional plane. So a big part of what I call the quantum hologram matrix, or the quantum hologram theory, founded by Dr. Rudy Shield, emeritus professor of the Harvard Smithsonian, who authored an article in my book, Yahweh the Biblical God is an Alien, called the quantum hologram theory. It plays into the fact that we all live in a multi-dimensional existence.
In other words, we ascend to a higher form, and eventually we could also become gods ourselves and have the same kind of power. So you start off at one level and you move your way up in the scale until you're a god yourself, and you create other worlds with beings on it. Is this been going? How long has this been going on for that we think we know of, or is it something that's just been going on for infinity, forever?
I believe it's been going on forever. You know, which came first, the chicken or the egg? It's debatable. I don't know that anybody has the correct answer for that. But what I believe in, I do believe in the ascension process. But I believe, like I said, that my soul, or my God self, which is the part of God that God lent to me for this particular lifetime, is omnipotent, just like God is. And since it's omnipotent, that means that it exists on all dimensional planes simultaneously. So like I was saying, in another concurrent lifetime, in other words, kind of like the concept Highlander, where he was split into, 9 or more of his own selves. And as each one would die off, the other ones would inherit the power of the one that just passed on. But they were all living at the same time in other planets and other dimensional planes. I believe the same thing, but in the Highlander, the difference was that they all looked the same. But to me, in another dimension, I might be what you call an onto-energetic being, or an extra-dimensional, where I don't even possess a physical body, but I do have a consciousness. I just don't vibrate at a density where I'm going to have a physical body. And then in another concurrent lifetime, I may actually look at my arm and see that my skin is green and I have no hair on it. If I looked in a mirror, I could see that in my head I have an elongated skull and I'm bald. And my eyes are real big and black, because in another dimension, I myself could potentially, conceivably be an ascended elder extraterrestrial.
Are you of the belief then that the traditional gray aliens might be ascended beings from another dimension that are actually higher dimensional beings, or godlike beings? Because, if 200-300 years ago a ship would have landed somewhere and those beings would have come out, the term extraterrestrial was, something they didn't understand or even know about. So to them, they would be gods regardless. That's what they would be seen as. So are they really gods in that sense?
In that sense, yes. But one thing about grays, a lot of them are manufactured beings. According to Linda Moulton Howe, she terms them as ebens, okay, which means they are a biologically created being. Now, on the other hand, there are grays that actually have an amethyst or a soul. So, yes, some of the grays are in fact manufactured beings. Others are actually flesh and blood extraterrestrials. There's a difference between alien and extraterrestrial. An extraterrestrial actually has a soul, and an alien is a manufactured being.
With all the times that you're coming back as these different dimensional level beings, do you or don't you remember your past? And why don't we remember ours, whatever we were before this?
Do I remember my past? In fact, I do. I remember some of my lifetimes. I can't remember them all. No, definitely not. Definitely not. Here's an example, is that Moroni descended to the earth in 1823 in western New York. He approached Joseph Smith, who was 17 years old at the time, and told him that he used to be an earthling, but now he has since reincarnated and comes from the Pleiades. Now, he told this to him, and that's actually in the Mormon Bible. And one of my best friends is Mormon. It took him a couple years to realize, and I kept telling him, you've been worshiping an alien and you didn't even know it. But the more he's thought about it, now he realizes that he has been.
Okay, then if you know all this knowledge, can you please explain to me the magical underpants?
That might be the best question of the day right here.
The Mormon magical underpants.
Mormon magical underpants. No, I don't have an answer for that one. It is a very astute, brilliant question. I don't possess all the knowledge in the universe. I can make something up if you want me to, but I don't know. Well, then I don't know.
Phenomenal question there, Alan.
That was a good one. Okay, so I don't know which question to ask first. Okay, so let me ask first, because you mentioned the Arcturians. So tell us kind of who they are, what do they look like, what are they here for? Because that's kind of what I'd love to hear, especially from people who are getting messages, from these beings that are here, and they're not here to abduct us or, anally probe us. They're here to actually help us. What are they helping us do? Who are they? What's the message?
To me, not all of us, but a lot of us have an Arcturian higher self in a concentric lifetime. So imagine the concept that I'm trying to spin here. So, yes, my name is Reverend John Polk in this lifetime on the 3D Earth plane, but let's say in the 7th density, I am an Arcturian, and the Arcturians, for the very most part, are loving, benevolent beings, okay? They vibrate at the 7th density. It's easy for them to come down to lower densities and lower dimensions. It's difficult for us to ascend upwards to those dimensions, especially coming from the 3D 3rd density. It is because we have a body. Now, a lot of these beings, they're not looking for the light. They don't seek the light. They are the light. So imagine a being that's full of these non-physical molecules all swirling around a centralized location, which you could call your soul. Their density can pass into our dimension, but they'll come here more as in a spirit form than they would as a physical body.
Now, we're talking about spiritual beings that are the reason why we're here. They created us. But in the endless vast of the universe, the infinite universe, there are other planets. We've discovered, thousands of planets at this point. NASA just released, information. They found Earth-like planets. One recently where they're saying this has oceans. This planet is very much like the Earth. Are there physical beings on our dimension that you think we'll be able to contact one day, or are all the contacts that we're having now just God-like beings and not those physical beings in our dimension?
Angel, I believe it's all of the above. That this planet is so valuable and so precious to not just us, but to extraterrestrials all throughout our solar system, the Milky Way galaxy, Andromeda, and all throughout the universe. One of many reasons is that planet Earth serves as a space-time portal for time travelers. Okay, Chaco Canyon in northern New Mexico was a space-time portal for them to stop over while they're on their way to the next time-space portal on another planet. Also, there's over 1,000 bases throughout this planet. Most of them are in the oceans, some of them are in volcanoes, a lot of them are in mountains. They're all over our planet. So if we go and mess up the chi or the 23.5 degree tilt axis of our planet through nuclear weapons, if you notice, the flaps really started in the 40s when Oppenheimer experimented with the atom bomb in White Sands, New Mexico, at that proving ground out there, because there's nobody there. Perfect place to test nukes. But that's where the extraterrestrials realized, if we go on this current course, that we're going to destroy the spirit energy of our planet, thus destroy their portals and destroy this time-space continuum base and all of the portals and vortexes that they need to travel through to go to other places in the universe.
I want to give you a chance to give the audience your website address so they could get the book also, and show the book one more time on camera so we can have everybody who's going to watch the video buy this book, read the book. If you're into the ancient alien phenomenon, if you're into the lore of the Sumerians, Yahweh, this is a great book to pick up. Reverend John M. Polk, give us your website address one more time.
All right, Reverend John M. Polk, and my website is johnpolkmedia.com. That's JOHNPOLK media.com. Also, please connect with me on Twitter at Reverend Polk, and if you want to spin any questions at me, whether you agree with me or not, it's perfectly okay. I like to answer questions. I just got one from Zimbabwe, Africa today via email. My email is jpolk2@cfl.rr.com. That's jpolk2@cfl.rr.com. Seth, Crystal, Angel, you did a brilliant job interviewing me, and look forward to doing another show with you in the future.
Thank you so much for being with us on Skywatchers Radio and for your participation on Mufon Orlando 2016.